Vital villages, thriving towns. Prabhakar at the blacksmith shop. Prabhakar sat watching the smiths at the local shop. There was a small bench on which iron tools like axes and sickles were laid out, ready for sale. A bright fire was burning, and two men were heating and beating metal rods into shape. It was very hot and noisy, and yet it was fascinating to watch what was happening. Iron tools and agriculture. We often take the use of iron and granted today things made of iron and steel are a part of our daily lives. The use of iron began in the subcontinent around 3000 years ago. Some of the largest collections of iron tools and weapons were found in the megalithic burials about which you read in chapter 4. Around 2500 years ago, there is evidence for the growing use of iron tools. These included axes for clearing forest and the iron plowshare as we had seen chapter 5. The plowshare was useful for increasing agricultural production. Other steps to increase production irrigation. The kings and kingdoms you have been reading about could not have existed without the support of flourishing villages. While new tools and the system of transplantation chapter 5 increased production, irrigation was also used. Irrigation work that were built during this time included canals, wells, tanks, and artificial lakes. Look at the picture. Iron tools. Here is a set of captions. Choose the right one for each of the picture. Sickle tongues axe. Prepare a list of at least 5 objects made of iron steel that you use almost every day. If you look at the chart, you will find that some on the stages in the construction of irrigation work are mentioned. Fill in the rest by using the following phrase. Labor is provided by the people. Farmer also benefit because crop production is more certain. Farmers have to increase production to pay taxes. Kings provide money and plain irrigation work. Who lived in the village. There were at least three different kinds of people living in the most villages in the southern and northern part of the subcontinent. In the Tamil region, large landowners were known as Velle, Velayar, ordinary plugmen were known as Uzzawar, and landless laborers, including slaves, were known as Kadashiyar and Adimai. In the northern part of the country, the village headman was known as the Gram Bojika. Usually, men from the same family held the position for generations. In other words, the poet was hereditary. The Gram Bojika was often the largest landowner. Generally, he had slaves and hired workers to cultivate the land. Besides, as he was powerful, the king often used him to collect taxes from the village. He also functioned as the judge and sometimes as a policeman. Apart from the Gram Bojka, there were other independent farmers known as uh, Garihaptiks, most of whom were smaller landowners, and then there were men and women such as the Dasa Karmakara who did not own land and had to earn a living working on the fields owned by others. In most villages, there were also some craft persons such as a blacksmith, potter, carpenter, and weaver. The earliest Tamil compositions. Some of the earliest work in Tamil known as Sangam literature were composed around 2300 years ago. These texts were called Sangam because they were supposed to have been composed and compiled in assemblies known as Sangam of poets that were held in the city of Madurai. See map 7, page 105. The Tamil terms mentioned above the found in Sangam literature. finding out about cities, stories, travelers, sculptures, and archaeology. You may have heard the Jataks. These were stories that were probably composed by ordinary people and then written down and preserved by Buddhist monks. Here is part of Jataka story which tells us how a poor man gradually became rich. The clever poor man. Once upon a time, there was a clever poor young man who lived in a city. His only resources was a dead rat. He started off by selling it for a coin to hotel for their cat. Then one day there was a storm. The king's garden was littered with branches and leaves, and the gardener was at loss as to how to clear the mess. The young man offered to clean the garden if he could keep wood and leaves. The gardener agreed at once. The young man rounded up all the children who were playing with an offer of sweets for every stick and leaf that they could collect. In no time, every scrap had been neatly filled near the entrance. Just then, the king's potter was on the lookout out for fuel with which to bake his pots. So he took the whole lot and paid the young man for it. Our young man now thought of another plan. He carried a jar full of water to the city gate and offered water to 500 grass cutters. They were pleased and said, "You have done us a good turn. Tell us what can we do for you?" He replied, "I'll let you know when I need your help." He then made friends with a trader. One day, the trader told him, "Tomorrow, a horse dealer is coming to town with 500 horses." Hearing this, our young man went back to the grass cutter. He said, "Please give me a bundle of grass each and don't sell your grass till mine is sold." They agreed and gave him 500 bundles of grass. When the horse dealers could not buy grass anywhere else, he purchased the young man's grass for 1,000 coins. Let list the occupations of the persons mentioned in the story. For each one, try and decide whether they would have lived only in the city, only in villages. In both cities and villages, why do you think the horse dealers was coming to the city? Do you think women could have taken up the occupations mentioned in the story? Give reasons for your answer. We can use other kinds of evidence to find out about life in some of these early cities. Sculptures carved scenes depicting people's lives in towns and villages as well as in the forest. Many of these sculptures were used to decorate railing, pillars, and gateway of buildings that were visited by people. Look at the picture. A sculpture from Sanchi. This is sculpture from Sanchi is a site with stupas in Madhya Pradesh, showing the scene in a city. You will learn more about Sanchi in chapter 11. Notice the way walls are shown. Are they made of brick, wood, or stone? Now look at the railings. Are they made of wood? Describe the roofs of the building. Many of the cities that developed from about 2,500 years ago were capitals of the Mahajanpadas that you learnt about it chapter 5. As we had seen, some of these cities were surrounded by the massive fortification walls. In many cities, archaeologists have found rows of pots or ceramic rings arranged one on top to the other. These are known as the ring wells. These seems to have been used as toilets in some cases and as drains and garbage dumps. These ring wells are usually found in individual houses. We have hardly any remains of places Markets are homes of ordinary people. Perhaps some are yet to be discovered or archaeologists. Other made of wood, mud, brick, and thatch may not have survived. Another way of finding out about early cities is from the accounts of sailors and travelers who visited them. One of the most detailed accounts that has been found was by a known Greek sailor. He described all the ports he visited. Find Baruch on map 7, page 105, and then read his description of the city. The story of Gaza, the Greek name of Baruch. The gulf is very narrow at Gaza and very hard to navigate for those coming from the sea. Ships had to be steered it by skillful and experienced local fishermen who were employed by the king. The imports into Gaza were wine, copper, tin, lead, coral, topaz, clothes, and gold and silver coin. Exports from the town included plants from the Himalayas, ivory, agate, carnelian, cotton, silk, and perfumes. Special gifts were brought by merchants for the king. These included vessels of silver, singing boys, beautiful women, fine wines, and fine clothes. Make a list of all the things imported and exported from Bar-e Gavja. Underline at least two things that were not in use during Harappa times. Why do you think the merchant brought gift for the king? Coins. You may have noticed how wealth is measured in terms of coins in story on page 82. Archaeologists have found several thousand of coins belonging to this period. The earliest coins which were in use for about 500 years were punch marked coins, such as one shown below. Punch marked coins. Punch marked coins were generally rectangular or sometimes square or round in shape, either cut out of metal sheet or made out of flattened metal globules, a small spherical body. The coins were not inscribed but were stamped with symbols using dies or punches. Hence, they are called punches marked coins. These coins are found over most part of the subcontinent and remained in circulation till the early centuries CE. Thank you.